Morlarwa had just moved into the 2-bedroom apartment she had paid for a few days ago. For her, it was a fresh beginning, a chance to start over. She had spent months saving for the apartment, and when she finally got the keys, she felt a strange sense of relief. She bought a few pieces of furniture, arranged her belongings carefully, and promised herself that she would make the place her sanctuary. She had no idea that someone, or something, was already living there. The first strange incident happened 3 days after she moved in. Morlarwa had gone to work that morning, leaving the apartment neat and orderly. Before leaving, she had washed every plate, arranged the chairs properly, and placed her shoes beside the entrance. When she returned that evening, she stood at the doorway in confusion. One of the chairs had been turned upside down. Another was lying in the middle of the sitting room. Her plates were scattered around the apartment. One was underneath the center table, another was beside the television. A cup was lying on its side near the bedroom door. Her shoes had been thrown in different directions. The entire apartment looked as though burglars had searched every corner and had taken their time making a mess. Morlarwa immediately checked her valuables. Her television was still there. Her laptop was untouched. Her money was exactly where she had kept it. Nothing was missing. She slowly turned around, staring at the disordered room. "Who did this?" she whispered. Silence answered her. She swallowed hard. "Is someone stalking me? Who have I offended?" Again, there was no answer. She carefully rearranged everything. The following day, it happened again, and the next. Every time she left the apartment, she returned to find the place in complete disarray. Sometimes the kitchen looked as though several people had eaten there. Used plates would be scattered around, cabinet doors would be open, shoes would be moved from one room to another, the chairs would be overturned, yet nothing was ever stolen. Morlarwa became increasingly frightened. She began locking the doors twice before leaving. She checked the windows. She even changed the padlock. But nothing helped. The strange disturbances continued. After several weeks, she became frustrated. Morlarwa decided she needed to catch whoever was doing it. She applied for a few days' leave from work, claiming that she was sick. She even submitted a fake doctor report to her boss. Fortunately for her, the leave was approved. She planned to remain inside the apartment and discover the truth. The first day passed without incident. Nothing moved. Nothing fell. Nothing strange happened. Morlarwa almost began to wonder whether she had imagined everything. That night she slept peacefully. But the following morning, at exactly 6 o'clock, a loud crashing sound came from the kitchen. Clang! Morlarwa jumped out of bed. Another sound followed. Clang! Then came the sound of something being dragged across the kitchen floor. Her heart began pounding. She grabbed the small flower vase beside her bed and held it tightly. It was a ridiculous weapon, but it was the only thing within reach. She slowly walked toward the kitchen. Another sound came from inside. Then she heard laughter. Morlarwa paused for a moment. She tightened her grip on the vase and stepped into the kitchen. What she saw made her forget how to breathe. A young, pregnant girl was standing in the middle of the kitchen.
The girl was eating and dancing. She looked incredibly happy. She grabbed the plate, ate from it, danced around the kitchen and threw it aside. She picked up another utensil and danced with it as though she were celebrating something. Morlarwa stood at the entrance, completely frozen. For several seconds she simply watched. The girl looked peaceful, almost childlike, but she was clearly not supposed to be there. Finally, Morlarwa found her voice. "How did you get in?" Her voice was soft, despite the anger trembling beneath it. The pregnant girl stopped dancing. She turned slowly. Her eyes met Morlarwa's, and before Morlarwa could say another word, the girl disappeared. The vase slipped from Morlarwa's hand. She screamed and then fainted. When Morlarwa opened her eyes, she was lying on her bed. For a moment she couldn't remember what had happened. Then she turned her head. The pregnant girl was sitting on the single couch opposite the bed. She was staring directly at her. Morlarwa screamed loudly. She jumped out of the bed and rushed into a corner. "Please," her hands trembled violently. "Please don't kill me," she begged desperately. The girl shook her head and said, "I won't hurt you." Morlarwa pressed herself against the wall. "Stay away from me," she shouted. "I said I won't hurt you," the pregnant girl repeated. Morlarwa's voice cracked as she asked, "Then who are you? What do you want from me?" The pregnant girl lowered her eyes as she answered, "My name is Hannah." Morlarwa remained silent. Hannah slowly raised her eyes to meet Morlarwa. She added, "I've been here for a long time, even before this building was constructed on this land." Morlarwa swallowed and asked calmly, "Are you the one who has been disturbing my house?" Hannah nodded as she replied, "I was only having fun." "Fun?" Morlarwa exclaimed. She stared at her in disbelief. "You called destroying my house fun?" Hannah smiled faintly and replied, "I was happy because I could finally feel the presence of a human being." Morlarwa's fear slowly mixed with confusion. "Why me?" she asked angrily. Hannah shrugged as she answered, "I don't know." She paused for a while before continuing, "But I would like to be completely free." She looked directly into her eyes and added, "If you listen to me, I will appreciate it. All I need is someone to hear me out." Morlarwa frowned as she tightened her fist. "Ugh!" she groaned. Hannah began telling her story. Years ago, her father, Chief Jaboyega, had been a wealthy man who was terrified of losing everything. His wealth had begun declining, and in desperation, he visited people who promised him that his fortune could be renewed. He was told that he needed to provide a virgin girl as a sacrificial lamb. He instructed his men to search for one, but their efforts were all in vain. Time was running out. He couldn't find any virgin girl, so he used his own daughter. Hannah was 16 and she was a virgin. Her spirit was summoned through an incantation. She was given something to swallow.
After that, Hannah's stomach began growing physically. Her parents took her to different hospitals. Every examination showed that Hannah was pregnant, but she insisted that she wasn't. Her mother became furious. "Who got you pregnant?" she repeatedly demanded. Hannah refused to answer because, according to her, there was no man. Her mother's anger became uncontrollable. "Despite everything I have done for this girl, all she could do is to pay me back with shame," Hannah's mother whispered as disappointment and shame loomed over her. One day, during an argument, Hannah's mother hit her. Hannah collapsed and became breathless. According to Hannah, she wasn't supposed to die. Not so soon. She was supposed to carry the spiritual seed for 10 years before her life would be taken as part of the sacrifice. Her premature death disrupted everything. Her mother was arrested and eventually sentenced to life imprisonment. But Hannah's suffering did not end with death. Her spirit was taken and chained to the roots of a tree in an undeveloped area, while her body was buried so that people would see she was laid to rest. Her spirit was supposed to remain attached to the roots of the tree until the period assigned to her sacrifice was completed. Years passed. The area was eventually developed. The tree was cut down, but not all its roots were uprooted. A building was constructed on the land, but part of the roots remained deep beneath the soil. That was why Hannah could not completely leave the place. She could rise to the surface, she could move around the building, she could interact with certain things, but she could not cross beyond the boundary created by the remaining roots. That was how she ended up in Morlarwa's apartment. "I was lonely," Hannah said. "I'd been alone for years." Morlarwa listened quietly. "I was happy when you moved in," she added. You were happy? Morlarwa asked, her voice barely a whisper. Hannah nodded and replied, For the first time in a long time, I could feel someone's presence. Morlarwa slowly lowered herself onto the edge of the bed. If you want freedom, what can I do? She asked. Hannah said that one of her parents had to perform a ritual around the building. Her mother was the only one who could perform what was required. She would take palm oil, put some into her mouth, gargle it, then pour it back into the keg. After that, she would use the palm oil to circulate the entire building. Morlarwa stared at Hannah for a while and reminded her, Your mother is in prison. I know, Hannah replied. And you want me to get her out? That won't be easy, Morlarwa said. After a long silence, she promised that she would try, and that made Hannah smile. Morlarwa began the difficult process. She sacrificed her lunch breaks. She made phone calls. She visited the prison. She pleaded with the officer in charge of the prison to allow her to see Hannah's mother. She was refused repeatedly. Still, she didn't stop. Eventually, she involved her lawyer. After days of explanations, persuasion, and legal procedures, permission was finally granted for Hannah's mother to leave the prison temporarily under strict condition that she would be returned immediately afterward. Morlarwa took her to the apartment. Throughout the journey, Hannah's mother kept asking questions. Why are you doing this? Morlarwa didn't know how to explain that she was hoping the dead daughter of the woman sitting beside her. When they reached the building, Hannah appeared, but only Morlarwa could see her. Hannah stood quietly nearby, staring at her mother. Morlarwa explained everything to her, what Hannah had told her. Tears filled her eyes as she asked for Hannah's forgiveness. I was angry. I didn't understand what was happening to you. Her voice broke. Please forgive me. Hannah's mother continued crying as Morlarwa followed Hannah's instructions. The palm oil was prepared. Her mother took some into her mouth, gargled it, and poured it back into the keg. Then they began circulating the building. Every corner was covered as Hannah had instructed. When they finished, the air inside the building suddenly felt different. Hannah stood in front of Morlarwa. She looked peaceful. I am free, she said calmly. Morlarwa smiled through tears. Tell my mother I have forgiven her, and she will be free too, if only she forgives herself. She wasn't responsible for my death. The spiritual seed planted inside me was too powerful for her body. She added that her mother would be totally free after her father confessed all his atrocities. She thanked Morlarwa and faded away. As Hannah faded away before Morlarwa, Chief Kabuyega felt uneasy and confessed. He confessed what he had done to his daughter. He confessed why Hannah had been sacrificed. He confessed all the evil he had committed in his desperate pursuit of wealth. And, as his confession came to light, the wealth he had built through those rituals began to crumble. Properties were destroyed. Some buildings caught fire. Others collapsed. During one of the collapses, several of his children who were inside the building died. The fortune he had fought so desperately to preserve could not save him from the consequences of what he had done. Eventually, Hannah's story became known. Her mother carried the pain of losing her daughter, but she no longer carried the burden of believing that she had deliberately murdered her. And Morlarwa? She remained in the apartment, but the house was never the same again. No plates were thrown, no chairs were overturned, no shoes were scattered. The apartment became quiet and peaceful. Sometimes late at night, Morlarwa would sit alone and remember the young pregnant girl who had once danced in her kitchen. Not every spirit that appears in the darkness comes to torment you. Some are simply carrying stories that nobody ever stayed long enough to hear. And sometimes, the greatest help you can offer a suffering soul is not money, strength, or power. All a soul needs is a listening ear.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed telling it. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share. Don't miss our next adventure.